Tune into Reflection of Life, the podcast channel catered to the millennials of our generation. Be sure to follow my Instagram page, and the link is as below. Hi everyone, so welcome back to Reflection of Life. So my name is Lisa, signing into the podcast channel, and today we have our guest here is all the way from Austin, Texas, and his name is Scottie. And Scottie, do you want to introduce yourself in general?
Yeah, my name is Scott. Most people call me Scotty. That's what my grandmother called me. My last name is Gassner. I am a life coach here in Austin, Texas. I've been doing life coaching for about like the last 10 years. I was a personal trainer before that, and I realized that people's health really revolves around their mental health. It's a big impact, and so if I really wanted to help people get totally healthy, impacting their mental part was a big part of it. And so I do that. And then somewhere during the pandemic, I started a podcast. And so I've been doing a podcast for like the last 6 years. And I do a little stand-up comedy. I challenged myself at the beginning of the year to learn something new. And so in January, I got a comedy coach and I've been doing stand-up and just trying to really stretch myself. And so that's kind of like me in a nutshell.
That's so interesting because I do notice that you also have a part that this talks about your sneakers. So can you tell me about how do you integrate sneakers into your podcast channel?
Well, so, I guess everybody has something they're into or they're addicted to, right? Like we all like struggle with those kinds of things. And sneakers just happens to be mine. And so when I started doing the podcast, it was very important for me to wear like cool sneakers on every episode. But then, do you know who Mr. Rogers is?
Not really. Maybe you can tell me a
Okay.
little more.
So a long time ago when I was little, there was this guy named Mr. Rogers, right? And it was like this show teaching kids how to, be good and like all that kind of stuff. And he would do this thing where he would come into his house and he would switch from his outdoor shoes to his indoor shoes. And so it became this kind of shtick where I would come onto the podcast and I switch out of my slippers into the sneakers I was going to wear. And so now I use it as like part of the artwork and stuff like that. But it's just, that's my passion. That's my collecting thing. That's my addiction that I try to control and monitor and be good with. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's a very healthy one compared to what it could be,
Speaking about like you have a specific interest of shoe collecting, that reminds me of when I was like so young. I love to collect figurines. You know those kind of anime, uh, little figurines like Digimon and Pokemon. That was like my go-to interest. And then I remember always told my mom that I really need to get that collection. I really love it so much. Like Asian parenting, they normally would just say, you know what? You need to study hard. You need to get that grades. Then only we give you that dolls, and then you can get that collections as you wish. And sometimes I do even sneak out. Sorry, I snuck out and then go and get my little itsy bitsy collection. Not really the original version. I bought it. I kept it. I hid it. That was like one one of the perks that I used to like it, and it wasn't the unhealthy way, it was the healthy way, but not the good way. So as a parents, they would like literally say, you know, it's for your own good. You shouldn't collect so much of money. Sorry, you shouldn't collect so much of dolls because that's taking so much of money. And to go back to where I was when I was young and currently, I think that interest changed. I didn't really became so obsessive to a point that I would collect the whole collections with like so much of figures. I think this was the only one I bought it. Sorry, have you seen this? I remember
No.
when I was young, I remember my grandparent actually bought the generation one of Digimon Digivice for me, and then I kind of like lost it somewhere, and then I decided to like, you know what? Now I have a little bit of saving. I got this original version of this particular Digivice. Yeah, it was like that kind of interest. It reminded me when I was young. But hey, you know what? There's no wrong on collecting figurines or collecting shoes and all this thing. I think that is so part of us, part of us as a child and as a part of us as an adult. So speaking about today's topic, I actually decided to ask Scottie. Scottie was like something out of the topic to talk a little bit about AI and parenting. So, in other words, we will be actually having this conversation in terms of like how this parenting has changed over the time and how does AI play a role in terms of parenting and as well as how to monitor kids from time to time, you know. And I love to actually want to know a little bit about how parenting, health, purpose, and technology are related in today's world. So we will just have a little bit of lighthearted conversation, so that we can keep it as, not so intense, not so formal. At the very least, a very happy-go-lucky kind of conversation. So I just wanted to ask Scotty, as the first question is like, Scotty, I believe that you're also a coach, a functional aging specialist, plus you're also a father. So my question is, which role has taught you about fatherhood and why?
Oh man,
Okay.
like nothing teaches you how to do something more than doing it, right? Like, and so like becoming a dad, has taught me so much about being a father. Obviously, right? Like, and you're kind of learning on the fly, but you're learning from other people and stuff. But my job as an aging specialist, a lot of what I do is help people age well. So even though I work with like really young athletes and I work with young people, I work with really old people as well, right? And there's something that I learned about the process of getting old and aging and stuff that makes me have a really great appreciation and gratefulness
That's
for
great.
the relationship for the relationship with my daughter, right? And you don't, in my opinion, what I really love about Asian culture in general, right, is that like when your parents get old, you don't just kick them out of the house and put them in some retirement home. They live with you, right? Like it's constant family, right? And by working with a lot of older people, I've started to realize how important it is that they are around and in the home and connected, especially the grandparents of my daughter, right? And so my job taught me how important fatherhood is from the start, but then as you age and get older, and how important that role is to your grandkids and everyone else that you come in contact with, right? And so, I every day I try to go out and go, okay, what can I learn today? How can I grow today? What's going to impact me today? What challenge am I going to have to go across, and those kinds of things. And so, I would, if I had to answer your question, it's easy to say fatherhood, but my job with aging people has taught me so much about how to be a long time good dad. You know what I mean?
You know what I actually started this question? It just caught my curiosity. It was because when I was like approximately around the age of 24, then I started to feel curious about like, okay, so in order for someone like me to actually understand people who are already going into teaching, so the main reason that teaching career has kind of like caught me a curiosity of how to not just educate kids, how to actually know one day when, let's say, touch wood, I'm going to be a parent or I'm going to be someone who is older than where I am. I actually thought about myself in 10 years' time. How can I be that person that can mentor, that can help kids, or someone that maybe is just a few years younger than me to be a better person? So I started to go to parenting course when I was in church. And and people was just looking at me like, are you serious? You're just like doing a master postgraduate. What on earth you would just want to go for a parenting course? Then I just look at them and said, because I was serving in church when I was like around in my mid 20s. So for your record, I'm in my mid 30s this year. So I told myself, at the very least, I need to understand what was the thing that I need to be putting my position to mentor, to inspire, to actually talk to people. Doesn't matter if I'm a parent or I'm not a parent. So I started to realize that being a parent, there is certain things that we need to unlearn, And also, being an educator, we need to unlearn certain mindset in order to help younger people to be aware of where they need to be, especially like when they are reaching mid 20s, like in the mid like 25, 26 years old after their graduation. So like in Malaysia culture, it used to be those days that after every children graduated from high school, they are expected to stay with their parents and go to tertiary education, or perhaps they start working and still staying with relatives and so forth. But these days, like in this 2026 onwards, most of the children that are not really from Kuala Lumpur, they mostly have started to stay independently after finishing their university studies. Like for myself, I'm all the way from southern part of Malaysia, and coincidentally, I got a course offer in Kuala Lumpur, and that was the first time I need to step out of the house. I need to go out all the way from southern Malaysia to central Malaysia. So that was the reason why I started to see that, wow, this is a huge step for me. I have never left, for your information, from Johor. I've never left Johor before. All the way I was so comfortable at Johor, and suddenly, hey, you know what? Your calling is to, you need to stay in KL and start to be independent. Wow, that is a huge step for a kid. So that was what I started to realize, in order to be someone that can inspire younger people, doesn't have to be students. It can be also a young working adult. Like in my office, we need to like give them that inspiration. They can be good. They know how to one day step up of their comfort zone and socialize with different people. That was the takeaway from my case. Because as for my case, my daily job, I'm actually working as a trainer, and also I do actually educate people from time to time as well, and that actually encourages me to sit in a certain position, but not in that educator position only, but also have to be someone that can mentor people from time to time. So I have a second question for you, Scotty, that as a parent, when you're speaking about parenting your children, do you see yourself like from 10 years, from 20 years or 10 years before, you have changed the way you speak to people? Does it better from a different walks of life?
Um, it's interesting that you say that because while you were talking, I was thinking about me becoming a dad has changed the way I just approach other people in general,
That's
right?
that's good.
So now, like when I look at people, I don't look at them as just these other adults that I'm seeing. I look at them as children in the sense of like we were all like little kids, right? And we all had big dreams and we all thought the world was great. And along the way, the world tries to like beat it out of you, right? And so when I approach them with the kindness and the empathy that I approach my daughter with now, right? And not that I'm treating them like a child. I just remember like this is a person that is loving and hopefully has parents and has a family and stuff like that. And maybe they're having a bad day or maybe things aren't going their way. And the way I approach them can be gentle and kind and give them space to just be themselves and just be okay with no judgment or that they have to be something for me, that they can be in my presence and that's enough.
Cool.
And I learned that. I learned that from my daughter. I learned from just being with her because I'm an old parent, right? So I'm 50 years old and my daughter is only 5. You know what I mean? And so most people my age, their kids are like 25 years old.
Yes, yes, that is true. That's why I was like, wow, I have never thought like there. I mean, like in America context, people who parent their kids, they are normally already maybe reaching certain in their 40s or maybe in their 50s. So it was so different from Asian parents. Like for example, in Malaysia in general, most of the mutual friends that I have, or most of the people that I met, they are normally married in the age of like 24, 25 ish. Like the latest these days is mid 30s. So it's like our age range of getting married is getting older from time to time. Like in my previous 10 years ago when I was in the age of 24 and 25, some of my peers had already slowly settling down and then started to have kids and start their parents, their children. So I started to thought about myself like I would still remember when I was in my mid 20s, I have never thought about parenting. And then when I started to realize, when I started to speak to people, start to train people, start to mentor people, not really like mentor them as a manager, but mentor them as a third party outside of the department. And I started to realize it is not easy to not just parent the adults, but it's also to give them the hope that they could overcome certain adversity, even though there are certain times they are discouraged. Our role is there to give them that particular motivation. However, these days, motivation does not just come from people. It does not just come from their peers. They also come from AI. So, in general, in the current technology that we have, AI these days has been integrated in everyday life. Like in my context of my colleagues, most of them they are, doing AI for email writing, for um, looking for some research. They browse through Google nowadays. No longer is that shortcut. They're using AI to for everything, and one of it they also use it to ask for help or ask for a little advice or maybe ask for a little small planning. So let's say we're going to apply a little bit in you know uh, education aspects or how we develop people. It has become from our part of life. From your point of view, what are the most important human values in parenting should be intentionally nurtured in the children instead of like using AI for certain things? Like how would you manage that aspect?
All right. So, I might be the worst person to ask this question, but I'm going to answer it. Okay. So, in my house with my daughter, we don't do any devices.
Good.
She doesn't have an iPad. She doesn't have a phone. We play video games, but we like play them on the Xbox together. Like we talk to each other while we're playing, but we don't ever leave her on an iPad by herself. She does not watch like YouTube for long periods of times and stuff like that. But it's in our world. Like she knows we have phones. Like she knows what they do. She knows what an iPad is, and she knows what AI is. Like she she'll call it. She'll
She
go,
knows how to use AI at the age of 5 years old now.
no. So what I'll do is I on ChatGPT into the voice activated. Right. She'll have a question. She'll go. She asked me one day. She goes, Daddy, how far can a cat fall and still land on its feet? And I was like, I have no idea. Right. And so we turned on the ChatGPT and it talked to us. And she asked it questions. She asked it questions about the cat, and then she had follow-up questions about the cat, right? And she knows ChatGPT as being this like person on my phone that when we have questions we can't answer, we just ask. But what I've noticed is at least for her, it's kind of like her encyclopedia or her Google or her dictionary or her thesaurus of like trying to find out information. And we treat it that way. But I always encourage her, like, what do you think? How far do you think a cat can fall and still land on its feet? Like, before we look it up, use your mind. What do you think? And then you can back it up with this. You know what I mean? And I try to encourage her to think about it first, process it first before we go and find like the answer. Because when I was young, or even probably when you were younger, even though Google's around, we solved a lot of problems with trying to figure out our own, asking our friends and stuff like that. And that's where we make connection, like in this real world, right? So I want to teach her that AI is a tool. And it does a lot of cool things and it helps us do all and get cool information. But let's be creative inside of ourselves. She's a singer. She takes singing lessons. And she's been singing since she was like 4. She writes her own little songs, and she has already ideas about what she wants in songs and how she wants melodies to go and stuff like that. And that's all from inside her head and what she's picked up in the world,
Mm.
right? She's not asking AI to write anything for her or do anything for her, right? And so as a young person, I want to push that creative part of her, that creative idea, and understand that just like everything else we have, everything can be a tool, but you don't want that tool to use you. You want to use the tool,
So
right?
I do come to a conclusion, like not just only speaking about children and also speaking about us, we come to a conclusion that AI can be something that is helpful as an assistant tool. But as long as we depend on it, but eventually we started to realize the consequences of using AI. Like for example, we realize that there are certain words that may not be accurate. There might be certain things that seems hallucinated, and then the things that is feeding us is also feeding the AI because the prompts that we ask, the questions and the curiosity that we fed our AI storage, they actually become smarter and smarter. They slowly personalize or take over certain parts of your traits and then becomes something that is very relatable to you. So, as a parents itself, I think most of it we do notice the consequences. That's why encouraging kids to think critically it would play a very big part in shaping them. And I actually like the way you encourage your daughter to really explore ways of looking into the interest. Like, for instance, if she's so curious, you give her the chance to explore why does a cat jump from certain floor and then can reach to a certain ground. And that was like a wake up call as a person like myself to see that how can we actually nurture, doesn't matter like our kids, it's also nurturing our colleagues and also perhaps students that we are looking at. And then let's say your philosophy. So this is the next question. Your philosophy encourages people to be just be. So that was what your main highlight that is in your website. How can parents model authenticity and presence for their kids as in the midst of this era of technology?
I in general, as a parent, as parents, I think we all want our kids' lives to be easy, right? Like we want everything to be smooth, and that's just not the way things are,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And my parents, uh, they didn't want me to see the bad parts of the world. They didn't want to see me all the ugly parts of the world. So we just focused on all the positive parts of the world. But as an adult, you kind of feel like, man, I was a little lied to. Like, right? Like there's this whole other half, right? And so my approach with her, whether it be like technology or real hard life situations or things that we have to touch, is to be as authentic and as honest as I can in terminology for her and her little 5-year-old brain, right? And try not to quote unquote lie. Like try not to like tell just white lies to make it soft. Try to package it in a way that she can understand, but even if it's not the most comfortable message or
Mm,
not the most comfortable thing, right? Does that make sense? And
yes.
so I do that everywhere. When we talk about tech, like she knows, like I'll talk to her about technology and I'll be like, hey, we're gonna spend about 20 minutes. Like I'll let her play like a game on the iPad. I'm not saying we don't, she's off all technology. She's a kid. She's interested, right? But I'll go, we're gonna do 20 minutes and it's 20 minutes. There's no whining. And she knows when I come to get her, she's like, I'm done. She doesn't fight me for it. She doesn't go like, 5 more minutes. She doesn't try to pull it out of my hand. She hands it to me because we've established a boundary of like, this is a good thing. Playing games and stuff is fun, but we need to limit the time in which we do it because we have other things that are just as important, if not more important, to do inside of our everyday life, right? And it's the balance of that, right? The balance and the authenticity of the conversations. And I think I watch a lot of parents white lie their kids, tell like little white lies. And I'm not shaming anybody for that. But what I do think is it just makes little small questionable parts of trust with your kid.
Yes.
And if you can find a way just to be a little bit more honest about stuff that sucks or that to be real about stuff, you don't have to tell them the whole thing, but you don't have to pretend it's not there either. And I think that's what I'm doing different as a parent. Now, my mom doesn't like that a lot. Like, my mom will be like, you shouldn't be being that honest. But this is something out of my childhood. And I see when I talk to a lot of other people, stuff that they struggle with, right? Even as adults, full grown adults that should know better, they're still struggling with the ideas that their parents gave them because you are the product of the five people you hang out with the most. You are the product of the people that raised you. You're raised by wolves. It's those wolves' rules, right? So you see that impacting adults long term. And when I have to have honest conversations with an adult, sometimes it's hard for them because of the lack of honest conversations when they were a kid, right? So like I try to be like that parent, right? Like I'm covered in tattoos. Like I love hip hop music, and I'm not going to try to pretend that's not who I am in front of my kid. That's ridiculous. She knows I'm covered in tattoos. She knows I love hip hop. You know
That's
what I mean? So
That is so interesting, especially for Western parenting, because like in Asian parenting, they normally like suppressing that masculinity part of themselves. Okay, let me just bring it a little bit. Maybe it may sound controversial. I'm sorry, but I'll try to be more expressive as I could. Especially like in Asian parenting, most of the men they tend to suppress their emotions, so they don't really show them who they are as it is. That does not just apply in Malaysia itself; it also applies in certain Southeast Asia and Middle Eastern countries. Okay, so, for example, like when they are trying to educate their children, they don't really just like tell them, hey, what do you do was wrong? You shouldn't be doing like this, and this. But then for how to say children in Asian parenting is they tend to be very hard to talk to because perhaps because they have modeled certain characters from the parents in the past. So when you wanted to reason them out, they were normally using white lies and some sort of reinforcement. It can be a caning reinforcement in the olden age, but now, of course, in the in this current modern era, they don't really use caning because their establishment of do not cane kids in school, do not cane your kids at home. You should be following Western parenting, and you should do this to give your kids a safe place. Or perhaps in the previous generation, like they are born at this era of tiger parenting. So in Asian culture, we do have tiger parenting up to today, but the difference these days now is they are not so um, intensive in terms of how they parent the kids. They don't really take the cane from time to time on their side. Like my time when my parents um, were educating me, so there was so much of difference compared to today's generation. But like in certain part of Western parenting has also been implemented in our culture these days. Like for example, positive reinforcement. But sometimes positive reinforcement has a blind boundaries between being transparent and bringing white lies to the kids. The way Asian parenting bring white lies to the kids is like, you know what? If you don't do this, there's consequences for your behavior. Oh, if you're being a naughty kid, you gotta go to the police station for your misbehavior. So that was what we were being installed in our mind, been registered in the oh, if you're being mischievous, tomorrow you're not gonna go out because your teacher's not gonna let you go to do this certain action. So it's like, oh, so this is why we have the consequences because how to say there are consequences that wasn't being presented when we were young because that was how Asian parenting has been done to their kids. So at the end of the day, like for instance, if you meet Asians in American context, I'm talking about like Malaysians in America instead of like other type of Asians such as Vietnamese, Koreans, and Thai. They are different parenting. If you see like Malaysians, you see they are very careful in certain norms. They are very attentive, very mindful because we were being educated in that extent. Yeah, so that was the differences that I noticed. Like ever since I started to meet some American friends, I saw the way when they try to bring out things to you, they don't really hide things from you. They are very clear This is establishment 1 to 10. You know that this is the cost and there's a consequences in it. So that was what I started to realize. Like if you want to really tell people like what are the things they need to understand, you need to give them a very clear like you mentioned, boundaries. You need to tell them what's the terms and condition in it. So if you don't follow the terms and condition in it, there are consequences with it without caning. Like really tell them that, and that I would say is not really easy, especially to sit in and really tell them there are consequences. The consequences don't need
Yeah,
to.
my caning was my parents used a belt, like
Oh
the
my god,
belt. You know
that
what I
is
mean?
what in my parenting too. Okay.
Yeah. And so, like I always thought that when I became a parent, like I was going to do the same thing. I was going to use like a belt on my like kids. Right. But I realized that, whereas like that was probably effective for me and kept tattoos off my face, you know what I mean? Like them being that strict was like, there's another way, there's a better way, there's a more constructive way to do in the way I talk to her. And so, I'm so glad I had her at 45 and not 25, because I'm a totally different person at 45, right? My patience is way higher and I can talk to her about what went wrong, what she did wrong, what we need to do right. And we can have a constructive conversation about it instead of the memory of like a whooping and don't do that again. Like, cause that's what mine was like, hey, don't do that again. Here's a whooping. Don't do that again. There was no conversation about what I did. How could I be better? What were the expectations of me? That they still love me, all that kind of jazz. Right. And so that's what I try to bring to the table with my daughter. I try to use words that impact her as powerful as like a physical whooping, right? You know what I mean? That she remembers what I say from a kind place, not from a place of anger, but from a place of like, hey, this is not cool. This is why it's not cool. And we want to be better than that. We are better than that as a team. Like we're a team. This isn't you against me. This isn't a parent against a child. We are a team. And I am here to help you. I'm your Sherpa. I'm your guide. Like I want you to trust me. Are you going to trust someone that hits you? You know what I'm saying? And so like I want, because I'm thinking not just at her at 5, I'm thinking of her at 25. I want our communication to be great. I want to have a great relationship with her. And oh, by the way, I'm gonna be like 70 years old. I need her to like take care of me. You know what I mean? I don't want her to hate me when she's old, you know?
That's the reason why I do notice, like, if a parent, when they were young, they actually managed to reinforce certain values to the children. So when as they grow older, they start to appreciate their parents in a very unexpected way. Because I really noticed that when I was young, of course, I have fair share of like I'm not happy with certain things what my parents did when they were young, when I was a kid, and then of course there's the rebellious phase, and then you have that exploration phase. Until one day something hits you very hard. The first thing I realized I was thinking of my parents, and I was thinking of like what were the things that they said now is happening. But of course previously the reinforcement does not register in my mind because of like what you mentioned, which you want to be um, respecting people who are giving you that impression that in the past that has been inhibiting you from developing. Would you want someone who actually give you that reason that you would no longer want to go back to? And then I started to realize like when things happen, I actually, the first thing I thought of were my parents. So there was this so surprising turning point that I slowly had that realization. I started to respect them um, in a very indirect way of full circle of parenting. So that's why I just started to see that, hey, I have never thought that, for example, I have never thought that, oh, being an adult working is so difficult. Now I know that what my parents have faced such hardship. Oh, I have never thought that my parents actually started to become independent before settling down and have kids. So there's so much of patience, not just only patience in parenting, patience in their marriage in order to have kids. Oh my God, that's so such a difference. And then for myself, I'm so privileged. I'm still single. I still can explore that part of me. And imagine that if I'm married at the age of 25, I wouldn't have the chance to explore that imperfect version of myself that can shape me to who I am today. Because like what you mentioned, that when you're in your 20s your patience was not there, and that was my for my case too. And then when I'm now back to the present time, now I'm in my mid 30s, I actually realized the way I interacted with certain people had changed. I also have realized the way I talk to my parents also had changed too. And that was the most surprising turning point. The ample of patience has, how to say, slowly change you as you have slowly socialized with different people, and you have started to explore things that you have never realized in life, or you hit the wall and then suddenly realize, hey, oh, so this is my learning curve. I'm learning a lesson of a lifetime. So that was something that I'm so thankful that I'm now speaking to you, because actually I've also spoken to a lot of people in the different walks of my life, and they actually had told me something so interesting, Scotty. Do you know what was the interesting fact they told me?
Tell me.
You know what, Lisa? Since you're so single, you don't really have a relationship. Sometimes you have a fair share of not happy. Why are you still single? Don't get married first. Go and figure out who are you. I was like, seriously? Why? But people always meant to be finding another person. Said no, it's not the case. And until when I'm now in my this age, I'm like, hell no. Now I realize what the hell that I was thinking all the while. I should be sitting here, really start to work on myself. Then only I can think about other aspects of life, such as commitment, such as financial stability, such as marriage, and such as having kids. Blah blah blah. Everything down the line. Yeah, so that was what, like, oh wow, I have never thought parenting is such a noble activity, and it really takes ample time, instead of like, I shouldn't have kids, I shouldn't have go back to singlehood. It's like that kind of thoughts. Have you ever
Yeah.
met like your friends having that single thought that they come back to you? You know what, Scotty? I would rather be single. I wouldn't want to have kids. I think you have also people around you who told you this.
Oh yeah, like I have tons of friends that are single and not really interested in like having kids. And let me say, like I had my daughter at 45, right? And so I had already kind of figured like I'm probably not going to have kids. My life was already like kind of like going right, and so
Right.
like I'm not going to have kids. Like that's not going to be my life, and my life was wonderful. Kid free life is wonderful, right? Like I mean you get to do whatever you want. You don't have any responsibility. But also, kid life has been really wonderful. And I'm really embracing where I'm at right now. This is 2026, right? And in 2016, I was married to another woman, right? And then you fast forward 10 years, I have a totally different partner, and my daughter is with that partner. And I never would have guessed that I would be married, divorced, kid. I never would have guessed this would have been my journey. But like what I learned in this last 10 years is that roughly like, every 10 years, every 15 years, you change. You
Yeah.
change as a person. And these are chapters. And who I was 10 years ago is part of who I am, but it doesn't have to define who I am right now. It's just a chapter in the book. And I think a lot of people get hung up on a chapter
Right.
or the
Got
chapters,
it. Got it.
and they're like, if the chapter before doesn't match this part of the book, then like, what does that mean? And that's not how this book is. It's like more of a book of short stories than it is one long flowing story, right?
Yeah. That's why I just realized, like, after I meet people who actually happily settle down, they said that they met the unexpected ones, or they faced divorce and then they remarry again. They just tell me one thing. You know what? You just need to go and figure yourself, just work on yourself. Then only you talk about all this next chapter. That was what I started to realize. There are some things, for instance, during my postgraduate time, I realized I was like, in a limbo. I'm like drowning somewhere, swimming in the sea. And where am I gonna reach these days? And to fast forward move time, you were right. Like after I was like around 29 years old, people are already so stable, but they're still exploring. But for my case, it was my turn to face this with more degree of proper decision making, even though it's a short decision making, but it was a fast one. Instead of like comparing to my peers who are making decision of like, oh, what should I do? I start exploring this. Oh, I have ample years of exploring. For my case is no, I've heard stories. I can immediately make that decision without hesitation. That was my storyline. Like even where I am today now, everything has changed according to years of patience, according to year of maturity to know that this is a few things that I need to make for myself, even though I don't know where I am, but I'm going to get there. Eventually, that would be the same of like how to educate people as well. Yeah. So moving on to one more question I want to ask you, that is like, um, when it comes to cultivating a household. So since you were saying that fast forward few years time, you have already see changes in your life, which that was also my changes of life. How can families, like how can you cultivate a specific value in your household in terms of like mental, physical, and mental physical well-being?
So, you were saying you got to figure yourself out first before you like get in a relationship, right? And I think let's put a little asterisk on it, right? I'm never not trying to figure out myself. I'm in a relationship. I have my daughter every day. I'm trying to figure out more about myself. That journey doesn't stop, right? But it has to start. Like if you get in a relationship and you haven't started the journey of exploration, then you're going to start that with another person, and it gets real easy to lose who you are, right? So if you start that journey, right, you meet a person and then the journey kind of shifts, but y'all kind of go together and maybe y'all split up and y'all go apart and you'll come back together with somebody else or whatever. But that journey is like ongoing, right? Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that journey of self-exploration, betterment of myself, becoming just being the best version of myself, right? In my household, I'm one of the leaders. My girlfriend is a leader, and I'm one of the leaders for our little tribe, our little team, right? And I'm always like, always, we are teammates. Me, you, and the little one, teammates. And if we're not on the same team when they have a discussion about it, if someone's getting cross to somebody, I'm like, are we teammates? Is everybody on the same team right now? Right? And I think through like my divorce and all the bad things that happened leading up to this point and me finding myself and being the best version of myself, that carries over and it's infectious, right? When someone shows up to be your teammate, are you really going to tell them to like F off? Nah, you'll probably lean into it. You'll be like, this person's here for me. They want to be my teammate. And my daughter knows us as teammates all the time. So much so that like my girlfriend will do something and she'll be like, Mommy, we don't do that. And I'm like, Mommy, we don't do that. And we all laugh because it's not out of a place of like, you're doing something wrong. It's a place about like, we're looking at the whole entire team. And I think, we all worry about ourselves individually. And when you get in a family and a relationship, it's really easy to think about like, they are being mean to me. They are not doing the things I want. They are not meeting my needs. They are not giving me my requests, but you're part of a team. So what are you doing? How are you showing up for them? How are you leading? How are you being a teammate? And you need to check that first before you start complaining about the lack of teammate and the other. And that view shifts the whole family dynamic, at least for me, because there's no me blaming anyone. There's me trying to show up as my best person. We all show up as our best person. And so, it's just, again, I'm so grateful that this relationship that I have, because my girlfriend, I knew her 20 years ago. And there was something about her that we broke up, and it really comes down to, it was just horrible timing. I was in a bad place. She was in a bad place, but who she was as a person always stuck in my heart. Right. So I go on my life and I get married to somebody else, and then that ends. And then, in my life in shambles, of course, what I do, I call up old girlfriends and see what they're doing. Like, like a loser. Right. But she was one person. I just wanted to know, what was that? What was that 20 years ago that was so connected. And what that was this true connection that we had with bad timing. So we come back together. And then now I have this wonderful daughter. I have a wonderful partner. I'm so grateful for them. But that is all timing, maturity, teamwork, all the things we talk about that I did along the way to become the best person I could be. Because if I wasn't, I would be the same person I was in the relationship 20 years ago, and the timing wouldn't have mattered because we wouldn't have had the connection and the chemistry because I wasn't showing up as the best version of myself.
You know that there was this one point I like that you pointed it out. It's like first we need to check on what can we offer to someone before we said something that is inadequate on the other person's side. It's like a very interdependent form of relationship that also subsequently going to happen in your parenting as well. And that was something that I find that it was good that you pointed it out. This was because I always have that chat with different people, and then I realized there is this element that is always missing in that conversation, which is what can I offer the person? What is on the table for that person before the other person offer that on the table for you? So there was like something that I always ask myself, what was the thing that was so inadequate I cannot please the other people? Then one fine day, I managed to meet a lady. She's in her 70s. So she told me that, what did you offer the person on the table? How do you actually give that part of you before saying that you have lost yourself? I was like, wow, that is something that just hit on my face. Like one tight slap. Then the second type slap I was being asked was like, do you actually sit there to know what are you going to start negotiating for? I was like, oh my god, another type slap on my face. It's like a wake up call. Like in general, instead of like blaming the situation, it's like I have to come back to myself, like really sit in by saying, okay, before I lost myself, why are you doing this? How does this help you before you know that you're being neglected? Then I started to realize, oh my god, the F word just came out of my head. I was like, I have never thought that I have neglected myself. I've given too much for people. I've been accommodating too much to a point that I have neglected the things that I needed. So I need to first settle the things that is, within my cup of tea. Then only I can go back and say, hey, you know what? At this part of myself, I have this certain part of me. I can help you in this aspect. So, how can I make you feel better? That is what's supposed to be from my part. Doesn't matter like in relationship, like in friendship, in workplace, and also soon to be like, maybe meet someone who can sit in and say, how can I actually accommodate the person? Before this, let me accommodate myself first, then only I come back to that person. Like it's not like a structural thing. It's a very organic thing, like what you mentioned, how your previous relationship occurs, how your marriage occurs, that has changed you. Then only you can come back and check on that person. Oh, what was the changes has changed on me? Oh, that is how it is. So that was the cycle. It is a very organic thing. You don't know what will happen. So I have one question for you, like an additional question that is,
Yeah.
how do you know that when you know that that person wasn't giving you the best of what you want? How do you realize that turning point that says that, you know what, hey, Scotty, I just realized maybe this part of me I couldn't satisfy my own need before satisfy another person's need. Like when was that? That hinge.
I would like to have a really cool answer where I tell you that I was in my marriage and then like I realized that like it wasn't good for me and I left, but that wasn't the case. The case was I was a fairly weak person. I was a people pleaser. And I would have done anything I would have sacrificed my own soul to keep my marriage together for that other person. Right. And that person had to leave me. Like I got left. And when I got left, I was like, I don't owe anything to anybody. I'm not beholden to anyone.
Yeah.
I can do anything with my life that I want. And I was like, if this is going to be the reset and this is going to start over, I'm going to do this exactly the way I want to do it this time. And so the reason why my current relationship is so much stronger is because I have boundaries, I have self-respect,
True.
but most importantly, I give respect to my partner, which I wasn't doing in my marriage, which was my big fault. That was the big thing that if I wasn't happy, that there's a respectful way to engage someone. There's a respectful way to get that done. There's a respectful way for leave. And I'm so much more respectful. Not that I was super disrespectful to my ex-wife, but I'm so much more conscious of respect and who that person is. She's also the mother of my child.
Got it.
And so like she deserves respect. Even if she is not showing up as the best person for me, that doesn't mean that I need to be disrespectful, because ultimately at the end of the day, I have to sit with all my feelings and the things that I do. So if someone's being rude or mean to me, like me being rude or mean to back means I got to be responsible for what I did. If I can find a way to meet someone with grace and space, then I can be happy about the way I did that. And that was all learned like through my divorce and stuff, right? And so I kind of forgot the initial question, but like really it just like it. You are the center of your own universe. You are the main character in your movie. If you want you to be a good movie, it's up to you to make it a good movie. No one else cares. No one, they're all side characters in your movie. So how do you want to show up for your movie? How do you want to show up for your partner? How do you want to show up for your friends? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
How you try to frame my questions, even though you didn't get an initial question back, but I can manage to capture some of the values that you were speaking about, like 3 values. One is respect for your partner and respect your kids and the family. Second thing is boundaries, and the third one is in regards of personal responsibility. So when you are learning all these values, this will eventually influence the family. They will influence to become your team member, because when you are responsible for yourself and you know how to responsible for emotion and how you parent your children and all this thing, your family will prosper. So that's what I understand from.
Well, you can't control other people.
Yes.
The only thing you can control is yourself.
Correct.
Right? So if you have a request from another human being, you need something from another human being,
It's a basic
right?
respect, you know.
Right? If you want those things to happen, you have to be respectful. But also, it's like, can I be such a presence to influence you that for you to go, this could be good for both of us?
Yes.
Right? So instead of like telling you what to do or making you what to do or controlling you, I just go, I think that we could both benefit from this. How can I show up that we can both benefit so I quote unquote can get my way? Right? And I think that's much more easier to swallow and be a part of when someone shows up like that. You know, it's a lot like that in podcasting, creating good relationships, podcasting, right? Being willing to go on any podcast, talk to any person and grow with other people. It's so important, right? Stand-up comedy is like the same way, but your relationships are the same way, right? My philosophy is kind of, take care of your physical, your metaphysical, and your mental health, right? So it's your physical health, your mental health, and ultimately your purpose, right? And the action items behind that are: how do you learn, how do you serve, and what do you create, right?
Okay.
And those drive those things, right? When you're learning, you're really impacting your metaphysical and your mental health when you're learning something, right?
Oh, got it.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And when you're serving someone else, you're impacting your physical and metaphysical presence, right?
Yes.
And then when you're creating, you're ultimately impacting them all, right? Yes. And creation can be making a podcast, doing a painting, or it could be serving your church, creating new memories, getting people to see things in a different way. That's also creation, right? But we look at it as if like, I can only do certain things. I can't serve. I can't create. I can only do this, or I can only do that. But really, it's a whole encompassing thing of your life. You have to kind of like dig into all these little things, because your life is not one dimensional. There's a lot of dimensions. I have a lot of titles. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a dad. I'm a podcaster. I'm a sneakerhead. You know, I'm a lot of things. And so like I want to bring all those things to the table too, you know?
Yeah, that's why that's the reason why I started to ask you a question in regards of like uh, indirectly speaking about your philosophy, what are the values that you're picking on. That was something that I find it is very inspiring because that's how you inspire people. That's how you actually make people understand that parenting is not just only in regards of educating, nurturing. It is also about serving. So once you know how to serve, and then eventually you know how to nurture. So these are the two prior aspects that has to be implemented before you talk about bringing legacy to your children and so forth. Yeah. Then another question that is regarding on legacy. So, what do you believe about the greatest legacy that you can leave for your daughter? Let's say you're
Oh,
approaching maybe another few years time ahead.
oh
Oh, outlives.
man. You know, I'll give you a real simple story.
Sure. Go ahead.
We will go out in public, and she'll see trash. She's 5, and she'll see trash on the ground, and she'll go, "Daddy, there's trash on the ground. We got to pick that up." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." And then she'll say, "Why do people throw trash on the ground?" And I'm like, I don't know, blah blah, whatever. And in her mind, it's just like this is just how we do as human beings, right? And if she keeps that philosophy her whole entire life, that philosophy of like doing the right thing, serving people, giving them grace, like all the stuff that I try to model for her, like not tell her to be, but show up as that person so she can see the example,
Yep.
right? Because me, I'm a religious person, and when I think of like what would Jesus do, I don't think Jesus would be going around telling you how you're not being like him. I think he would show up being the best version of himself, being this great person. You're like, wow, I just want to hang out with Jesus. Wow, I just want to know more about what Jesus is doing. Like he seems like a really cool guy. And so I show up as that person so people feel safe and feel safe to engage and feel supported and feel served and stuff like that. And if I pass that down to her and she carries that through our life, I feel like that I have succeeded. So far, so good. You know what I mean? And if I can maintain that her whole life, that will be my greatest accomplishment for
You know
sure.
what I like you when you talk about like Jesus, because like in the Bible says Jesus modeled it to give examples to people, like really share his testimony, like really just spread the gospel to people, not just only by spreading gospel. Like he really showed up, he really put that proper example for his disciple to actually follow through certain things, that the legacy of him after he has been crucified, people really followed him all the way and spread the good words about him, like how he actually educated his disciples. That was something that I think it was one part of a good place of modeling a parent. Sorry, how you modeled a children and how you parent your children. Because when you just only keep on telling and telling and telling, but you do not show it. And that was actually one of the things that people start questioning you. Are you really doing what you're saying? Do you actually do what based on your do you actually really show it via action? That's why there is a statement called action speaks louder than word. Then without action, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you telling me to be respectful? Why do you telling me to be for example, like a feed, I've been giving an advice where you need to be more courteous and feminine, but where else you are not modeling that feature, where else you're not showing me how to, for example, how to stop smoking, how to stop drinking, and how to stop doing things that is not highly immorality. So it's like those kind of things has been integrated in how you shape yourself first before you model a person to be like you. So that is, it's like, if you can't even play a part in terms of how you want to be a better person, do not expect you can model another person. Like it's like in Chinese, people they're saying it's like chicken talking to a duck.
No one likes to be told what to do.
Correct.
Nobody. Unless you're in the military, no one likes to be told what to do, right? And that includes my daughter, right? So if you really want to impact people, telling them what to do is probably just going to make them irritated and pissed
Oh,
off.
that is so true.
Showing them how to be. It's back to that kind of like white lie thing with your parents, right?
Yeah.
Like they're always telling you to like be a good person, but then you're observing them not being the best person. And you're like, well, what's going on here, right? And I'm not saying I'm perfect all the time, but I try to show up as an example. And when I don't, and she calls me out on it, I try to talk to her about it. When I'm not being the best, and she'll do it. Like she'll be like, her big thing is like, she doesn't want you to use the word stupid. And so if I say stupid, she'll be like, Daddy, we don't use that word. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, I don't go, I'm an adult. I get to use it. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't talk to me that way. I go, you're right. We don't use the word stupid. I acknowledge you know what I mean? And I treat her like a human. I don't treat her like an adult, but I treat her like a human being that has feelings, and like to not dismiss or go like, your opinion is not important, because it's just as important, at least to me, than anybody else in my household. I mean, she is a member of this household, right? And so I want her to feel that way. It's like, that's what we all want. Like, you know what I mean? When
validated in a way, people, you feel heard, you feel respected, you feel like you're present in front of that person. Am I correct getting this?
Hurt people,
Yeah,
right?
true.
So when you show up and somebody is being a butthead or not being the nicest person or whatever, I love killing them with kindness, because I try to look at them as like, there's probably a hurting inside because I didn't do anything. I just showed up. Like, why would they be mad at me? Why would they be intentionally hurting me? So can I find a way to engage that part of them that's hurt and get them to be heard, right? I'll give you a little example if you want one.
Go ahead.
I work with this 78-year-old lady.
Yeah.
Okay. And I showed up the other day and she was like, I'm in a bad mood.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. She just told me straight up. But older people will tell you exactly what's going on. They have no problem letting you know. And so I know she lost her husband about 4 years ago. And I know that he was important to her. And so I started to work with her, and like slowly I started to slipping questions about her husband. I was like, tell me about your husband. Like, I don't even think I know what he looked like, And she was like, oh, there's pictures in the back. Go see him. So I kind of looked and we talked about it. And she talked about the wonderful things he did for her and like how the relationship was. After that, she had the best session we've ever had. Okay. And it's because I tapped in to the hurt part of what she was really holding on to. Wasn't that she was in a bad mood, was that she had to let go of something. And so when I found a good emotion to tap into and she leaned to that good emotion, she let go of that other emotion. She let go of that anger, and she leaned into her happiness of the stories about her husband and stuff like that. And that motivated her to have a better session with me. And that requires a lot of observation and listening and being with someone and going, what do they need? What do I think they need? Can I ask them what they need? Can I show up as a person that feels needs instead of creating new holes or making it worse? How can I be the positive light today for that human being, right? And that's like part of my job, and I love it. And that's part of people, and I love it. And it's also something I have to be really aware of, that like I have to recharge my own battery so that when I go out in public, I'm not like, I'm in a bad mood, don't talk to me. Like, you know what I mean? I have to do that, right? And so I encourage people, lean into your physical, metaphysical, mental health. Make sure you're learning, serving, and creating. Make sure you're doing all that for you, because not only are you going to get the benefit of it, but everyone around you gets the benefit of it. And that's where the real magic happens.
It's a very ecological kind of interaction, because without that kind of, work on yourself, that kind of situation, you cannot ecologically benefit everyone. It's like a parasite with a plant. And then if you are always stepping, you are actually absorbing other people's like good vibes and all this thing, and then it's making people feeling unenergetic. So our role is to make people feel energetic by feeding them good spirits and make them feel more, not saying in cheerful and spirited positively, but make them feel that they are re-energized to be able to function on the next day. So that's our role in a way.
I also think that like being able to show up with another human being without judgment of what's going on with them and like that, because we're all inside of our heads judging ourselves so much, you know what I mean? So just to have someone show up that makes, there's a positive, negative, and neutral reactions, responses, right?
Yeah.
Feelings, right? Negative is bad. We agree negative is bad,
Sure,
right?
like this
And
is one. Yes.
and positive is good. We can agree positive, good. But neutral is also good, right? Showing up, not bringing more crap, or, to the table is also like a good thing. And so sometimes, sometimes my daughter just wants me to sit with her. She doesn't want me to say anything. She doesn't want to do anything. She just wants me to just be with her. Just be with me, Daddy, just while I'm here. And can I show up and be that role? Can I be enough in that moment to just like be there and not say or do, right? And I just think that if you want to have good outcomes in your life, it really comes down to how you invest into yourself. And most of us would just like everyone else to change and do different things around us, but that's not like how this thing works. And if you invest into yourself, you're going to see the fruits of everyone adapt, like doing more of the things you want to do, right? You know what I mean? Like, you ever shown up somewhere and been really, really happy, and the person you show up to meet's in a horrible mood, and you're just like, well, crap. You know what I mean?
The crap. It's like shit.
Yeah. And so I look at that as an opportunity, because I take care of myself. And when I show up to, eat lunch with Lisa, if Lisa's in a bad mood, I look at an opportunity of like, I can be here for Lisa because I have enough emotional cash and space to give her, right? And that feels good to me to be able to do that for Lisa, right? And that encourages me to be a better person, all that stuff. But that comes down to the work I do. And if you're not doing that work, you don't feel the impact of all those things,
That's the thing. I actually realized, like, I learned it the hard way, whereby you cannot change your environment, but first you need to change yourself. You need to start investing. How can you be better? Then only you can put yourself out there again. Like we mentioned, there's a energy cash that you can invest on people. Because before this, if you cannot even, recharge yourself, take care of yourself, or make sure that you're in good condition, then only you can speak to other people. I mean, these are all methodological, but without all these things, you cannot even function. So I really like the way you try to give an analogy in terms of like how you show yourself for people, because that is how human we are. Because humans are very organic people. Like, there's a lot of nuances of how we show up for people, how we presented ourselves, how we carry ourselves. Without all these aspects, you will find yourself like, oh, I'm lacking of this, and this. But then when you started to realize, like, self-awareness, being conscious about the things you're doing, how do you want to present yourself, and how do you want to inspire people? First thing is we need to have an energy check on ourselves first, then only we can start going out for people. That is how we are called to be. That is what I understand for people who are mentoring people, coaching and training others as well. Yeah.
Well, on my podcast, when I wrap up my podcast, I always ask the guests, what do you do to just be the best version of yourself so you can be good for everybody else? And then I have them talk about like what they do. And sometimes they read and work out and meditate and do all that kind of stuff. But what you find is that everybody has these unique little things that they do to like take care of themselves. Everybody has like a plan, especially if they have like their life together, right? And so I have my stuff too. And that's what I preach to my clients. I preach to them the things that to take care of yourself. You got to do the things that take care of yourself. Because like I told my daughter this, me and my daughter were driving somewhere and I asked her for something and I said like, thank you. I told her, thank you. And she was like, Daddy, you don't have to tell me thank you. It's fine. Right. And I go, no, I have to tell you thank you, because people will remember how you make them feel. That's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember necessarily your words, and they're not going to remember who you like, what you look like and stuff, but they will remember how you feel, right? And we're going to her karate classes is where we're going to. And she didn't want to go that day either. She was like, I don't want to go to karate and whatever. So we get to karate, we got to put her uniform on. So I'm putting on her gi and stuff like that. And when I got done, I grabbed her shoulders. I looked at her face and I said, thank you. And she smiled this big smile, right? Because she felt how I made her feel in that moment. She felt that appreciation and gratuity for coming to karate when you didn't want to, getting your uniform on. Thank you for doing this for me. I appreciate it, right? And she felt that. And I hope that changed the way she looked at the way you make people feel, because it's simply saying thank you for having someone open the door,
It's like, in other words, they are feeling heard, they are feeling understood, they are feeling that I'm there, you are appreciating what I do. That is why
That's right.
I get the point is there. So finally, if your children were to listen to this conversation 20 years from now, so you block that date that you have 20 years from now, what is the one message you would like to convey so that they can remember from you?
Man, there's so many times at least for me, because I care, as a parent, that you're like, oh, I missed the mark on that one. You know what I mean? Oh, I didn't do as good as I really wanted to for my kid in that moment. Oh, maybe lose your temper or something, and you yell when you don't want to yell and stuff. Mm-hmm. And something I had to realize about my parents, even though there was things about it I didn't like the way that I was raised, right? I have great parents, by the way. They were doing the absolute best job they could.
Yes.
They were doing the best job they could with all the tools that they had, right? And I would want Lucy to know I'm doing the best job I can. I'm using the best tools that I can. And when I let you down, it's not because I wasn't trying. It's just because I'm human, right? And I'm not perfect. But hopefully when there's mistakes or if I let you down, we could talk about it, make sure it doesn't happen again, or talk about why it happened and have good communication. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping in 20 years from now that we have great communication. She recognizes my imperfections and accepts me for those, and that she loves me regardless the way that I would for her,
Yeah. So since you have already conveyed one message, I would also like to convey one message as well, like for my parents and for maybe, let's say, if I have children or have students and so forth, I would say thank you so much for all the while have been always putting a lot of time, effort into my life, even though I'm not the greatest kid in the world, I'm not the smartest one, but I've realized that you have put your best resources to help me to be a better person. Even though there are sometimes I may be not the most perfect kid, there are sometimes I have my temperament, sometimes I have arguments with you. I really appreciate you and I love you as a child. And then for my future kids, if I have future kids, finger crossed, I would say thank you so much that you have given me the chance to let you to be your guardian. So when you're growing up, I hope that when you see these podcasts, you will realize that as a guardian, as a parent, we are not perfect from the inside out. We are trying our best to give you what you can. As a person who's older than you, I do not hope that you respect me or you will see me as someone else, but I would like to be by your side from time to time in your time of needs, even if I do not have the time, but I will make that time for you. Yeah, so that's my message. That's my last
great.
Message. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to Reflection of Life. So, Scottie, I think you have another podcast channel with your girlfriend. What's the name of the YouTube again?
Okay, so she's not my girlfriend. She's my friend that's a therapist.
Yeah.
And so my podcast is called Just Be with Scottie G.
Yep.
Right? And then the other podcast is called Mixtape Therapy. And what we do on Mixtape Therapy is we pick a form of media. So it'd be like a poem, a song, a movie, something that inspired one of us. We share it with the other person. And then we have a conversation about the thoughts and the feelings that it brings up. And so I love music. So it's real easy for me to dive into music and have feelings about it. So a lot of times we do songs, but we do movies. And Hannah's so great because, she's the professional in this scenario. I'm just like some guy, but she's the therapist. And so we get very deep therapy subjects to discuss about like how we become better from an expert that does that. And so I'm so grateful for her to have that. But it's called Mixtape Therapy. You can find it on YouTube. I would love it if you subscribe to Just Be with Scottie G. You can find everything at heyjustbe.com if you want to go there. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I really so thankful that you're able to fork out the time to have this lighthearted conversation, even though it sounds so intensive. I'm so sorry about this. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy this session. Do follow and subscribe Reflection of Life in YouTube, TikTok, Threads, and Instagram. We will get to you as the soonest time with the latest updates as well. So thank you so much, Scottie, and thank you for everyone who's listening to this podcast channel. Bye.